evening. I'd like to call the June 24th, 2024 Franklin City Council meeting to order. If you would at this time, we'll do something a little different. Silence your cell phones, and before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to just take a moment. I don't know how many people are aware, but I'd like to express my sympathy and condolences to Councilman Smith and the Smith family on the loss of his wife, Linda Smith. If you hadn't met her, it's unfortunate because she was full of smiles and laughs and joy. She served on several things around Franklin. She worked Blackwater events, Franklin Experience. She served on the Franklin Beautification Board for a long time. If you ever rode around downtown and seen things decorated, stuff like during the holidays and the fall, she was always a big part of it. So I just wanted to share that we are thinking about you and your family. And so sorry. If you need us, you know we're here. So with that, silence cell phones and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item this afternoon will be citizens' time. When you come forward, I ask you to state your name and address. You are allotted 3 minutes. We cannot respond to the questions, but be sure you leave a number for someone to get to the interim city manager, and your comments will be responded to. First of all, I'll call John T. Jones, 300 Lee Street. Please come forward.
How you doing? John T. Jones. I've got the house located at 300 Lee Street. I've been an over-road truck driver. I've been living in the house for over 3 years. The damage to that house was done 10 years before I got into it. I've been working on it, been doing the inside. I've had people walk through, they come through and want to go through it. They see where I've been taking care of the house, fixing it up, even scraped the outside, took the shutters and everything down. And now I got the inspections department and social service coming up and telling me I've got to move out due to the fact that it's not living conditions. I don't know what's not living conditions about it. I have water, I have everything in the house. The roof does not leak inside or anything. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done to that house. It's an historical home. I've just recently found out, just a little while ago, that the house is registered in Richmond as an historical home, which is what I've been waiting for so I can get the grants. I've got everything filed, but I didn't have that information. That is my home. I've got everything I've got tied into it. I'm asking that we get something figured out here because I'm not leaving my home without a fight, and it's an historical home and I'm trying to fix it. I've been there, like I said, 3 years. I've got everything I need. If in doubt, please come through, take a tour. The next gentleman that's speaking is actually with the historical.
And we have your phone number.
Yeah, my phone number is 434-594-6103.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up will be Clyde Parker.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Clyde Parker, 101 Magnolia Avenue in Franklin. I'm here on behalf of the Southampton Historical Society. Tricia Ross was planning to be here tonight, but she could not attend and asked me to come in her stead. I wanted to speak to the historical nature of the 300 Lee Street. Some people know it as the Gertrude T. Williams House. This three-story house was built in 1905 by William George Williams and his wife, the former Gertrude Taylor. Williams was a son of Mary Eliza Camp and John W. Williams. In later years, the house was the residence of Miss Gertrude Williams. Some people call her Miss Gertie, daughter of William George and George Taylor Williams, and granddaughter of Eliza Camp. Miss Gertie for many years was the credit manager for Camp Manufacturing Company. She held the same, She held the same position following the Camp merger with Union Camp and later Union Bag Camp Corporation. She took a lot of pride in this grand old house and its yard. She maintained the property with meticulous care. It was a showplace. She made sure that the landscaping was always kept in good order. She worked in the yard. It was common to see her bent over in her flower beds. The house is made of beveled clapboard on the outside. Its fretwork, etched glass doors, gingerbread trim, and cedar-shaped detail make it a perfect example of Queen Anne-style architecture. There's a small spring house on the grounds as well, and a 4-car garage. In the interior of the house, there were 3 large hallways, 15 rooms, and 5 baths. The trim work is entirely of curly pine, and the floors are of heart pine. The wainscoting and the 2 ornate mantels are made of oak. There are 6 working fireplaces in the house. The house is situated within the Franklin Historic District and listed by the Virginia Department of Historical Resources. The house has also been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. According to John Corstein, a consultant with the South Henry County Historical Society and an architectural historian and past director of the Mariners Museum in Newport News, who worked on the projects at Fort Moreau and Hilton Village in Newport News, under federal law, the listing of a property in the National Register of Historic Places places no restrictions on what an owner may do with their property up to and including destruction. And renovation materials used do not have to be original. Appearance is what counts. Example, drywall or sheetrock could replace original plastic walls. Heating and air conditioning can be added. All of this is unless it's a federal assistance involved. Now, it's on the Virginia Department of Historical Resources Historic District, as I said earlier, and according to their rules, there's no prevention from the owner from renovating or demolishing the building. Materials used in repairing or restoring the building do not have to be original. Again, appearance counts. The main thing is do not alter the original appearance of the building. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joanne Delancey.
I'm Joanne Delancey, 511 North High Street. I read in the Tidewater News the report of the May 13 City Council meeting, which reviewed the budget proposal. My first area of interest is comment made by City Council member, quote, I am concerned that 2 agencies that primarily assist the African American community were not funded, Cover 3 Foundation and Legal Aid, end quote. Though the council member did not know if these agencies even applied, it was stated, quote, that perhaps if Cover 3 did not apply, it may have been because the representatives of the foundation were insulted by the low amount it received from the city last year, end quote. 2 things. The first one is, if you do not apply for funds, you do not get funds. If I do not apply for real estate relief for the elderly, and I don't do that in a timely fashion, and I don't do it every year, I don't get relief. 2, I went to Cover Foundation, and I spoke to Mr. Scott. and I asked him, "Who speaks for your foundation?" He said, "I do." And he assured me he is grateful for every donation he gets, large or small, that goes to his foundation. My second area of interest is again comment made by council member, quote, "But yet there is requested $6,500 for Blackwater community events and the Franklin Experience, which do not necessarily put on any events that cater to the African American community," end quote. This led to a discussion of racial percentages participating in events. Who counts who shows up? Don't folks go to an event to have a good time? See great-looking cars that cruise in? Go dance to some great music down at Barrett's Landing on Third Thursdays? Or revel in the 4th of July celebration at Barrett's Landing? Or have fun at Lumberfest, while learning the history of our town, how we were founded in the lumber industry. Not everybody goes to every event in Franklin. People's interests are varied. But when we are down to looking at racial percentages at every event, we truly have a problem that desperately needs to be addressed. I'd like to end with a quote from Kofi Annan. "We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race."
Thank you. Next up, we have Kay Weaver.
Hello, I'm Kay Weaver. I live at 168 Covey Circle. Thanks for having this opportunity to allow me to come and speak to you tonight. You know, I've lived in Franklin most all of my life, with the exception of a few years that I taught in another city. But I've been here most of my life, and each year, just about every year, I think we get new assessments on our property. And I know this is likely on the minds of many in our community. I know that it is a concern. And the reason I'm coming before you tonight is because I received a $90,000 increase in my property assessment. It is under review, but that's right at a 39% increase. And you know, I have no qualms about past increases, and I understand inflation. I understand we are in a time that everything is going up, and it's affecting everybody, and it's affecting everything, and I'm sure it's a challenge for each of you upon deciding your budgets and trying to fund those budgets. But as a taxpayer each year, I've come to understand that a large part of the city's revenue source happens to be from taxes of those that own property. I'm truly beginning to feel that there's a continued pressure on property owners, specifically property owners, for the city's revenues, and I feel that it's starting to escalate to quite an unfair proportion. I question, why is it that every time additional revenue is needed, and I'm sure it's all the time, why is a major reassessment or increase in tax rates the source? I want to propose to each of you to perhaps start thinking how this is suddenly becoming, in my perception, maybe not everybody's, but it's becoming quite unfair. There are many, many non-owners that live here that do not share in the needed revenues at all, other than perhaps sales or food tax. Yet these same people enjoy the same police, the same fire, and road services. If there are children, they may attend our public schools. I have no children, yet I pay for those that do. Mr. McLemore, you stated, I think somewhere recently I read, that if you were elected, you want to decrease taxes. I think that's awesome. That is wonderful. But I want to know more specifics from you. How do you plan to do so? What is your game plan? I want to thank each of you for your service to our community. It's a challenging, and I'm sure oftentimes a thankless position that you share, but I want you to know you are appreciated. Your thoughts and your input and the things you do for our community are appreciated. But I want to give you this challenge. Please, please, try to come up with more equitable ways to raise the needed tax revenues for the city in which we all live and share in? How can renters maybe share in the revenue needs? They use the same services. How can they perhaps play some involvement in helping with revenue costs that put more and more pressure on a smaller proportion of our population within our community? Not only are property owners receiving assessment increases, but you decided this year or next year that you aren't willing to at least adjust the tax rate just a little to take some of that pressure off of us that pay those taxes. Did anybody get a 38% increase in your income? If you did, congratulations, you're blessed. But you know, that's not a reality for most. More equity for revenue sharing from all residents that choose to live here, in my opinion, should be very, very high in your top of list of things, your priority to contemplate. If not, I would question each of you, what do you hope to accomplish while serving on city council? We all enjoy this wonderful community, well-kept community for the most part, and a community of caring and support for each other, no matter the socioeconomic status. So I just ask, let's be an attractive and affordable place to live, and not one that's going to become eventually a difficult place to live because maybe it's too expensive for some, and that continually seems to financially bleed the property owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Patricia Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman, City Manager, and staff. My name is Patricia Brown. I live at 104 Langston Court. I am one of 6 commissioners on the board of Franklin Redevelopment and Housing Authority. I'm delighted to be a part of such a loyal group of men and women who desire change and are committed to the betterment of the individuals who are in need of a better living environment here in the city of Franklin. Tonight, I stand before you in support of one of our commissioners. His name is Mr. Charlie Ashburn. Mr. Ashburn is the president of the Board of Commissioners of Franklin Redevelopment and Housing Authority. He is a knowledgeable commissioner. He knows his duties, his responsibilities. He attends our monthly meetings regularly. He makes sound decisions based on the knowledge of the Department of Housing policies and procedures. He leads our board with integrity. Mr. Ashburn supports our executive director, Ms. Gwendolyn Blue, by attending local HUD meetings, conferences, and training. Finally, Mr. Ashburn is an asset to the Franklin Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and I believe he is an asset to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Robert Taylor.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Robert Taylor. I reside at 136 Bob White Lane. I'm here to support Mr. Ashburn as his reappointment to the board. He is the chairman and I am the vice chairman. And I recognize leadership. I'm also retired from the Navy. I'm also retired from the state of Virginia as a correctional officer, so I recognize leadership. And also, I'm a pastor of a local church, so you guys know I know leadership. So I recognize his leadership ability as well. People respond to him. He has, like Ms. Brown said, he has a vast knowledge to the board. And the truth of the matter is, he's volunteering his time. He's a businessman. He could be doing other things besides helping the public. And so he's dedicating his time. He's dedicating his talent. So as an asset, I appeal to City Council that you reappoint him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that concludes the citizens' time. Thank everyone for their comments. Next will be are there any amendments
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make an amendment to the agenda to add the Housing Authority to reappoint Mr. Charlie Ashburn to the Housing Authority as chair
Okay,
of the board.
that's put it in a motion.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion? Here none, we call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And so carried. All right. We'll move along to the approval of the June 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes. Any corrections or additions? Here none, I call for the motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any discussion needed? Here none, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And aye, so carried. Next will be the approval of the April 8th, 2024 work session minutes. Any corrections or additions?
So be it.
Here none.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion needed? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And aye, so carried. And do you have a resolution?
Okay.
The next item will be resolution number 2024-16. It's on the settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger. Can you read that for me? Good.
Did we approve both, all those minutes approval?
We did two.
I think it's three.
It's
Of
three.
Three.
It's a third.
Correct.
April 22nd.
Thank you for catching that. Approval of the April 22nd, 2024 work session meeting minutes. I'm skipped that. We're coming back at it. Are there any corrections or additions?
So be it.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion needed? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And aye. So carried. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And now we go to the resolution 2024-16. Vice Mayor will read that.
Whereas the opiate epidemic that has cost thousands of human lives across the country also impacts the Commonwealth of Virginia and its counties and cities, including the city of Franklin, by adversely impacting the delivery of emergency medical, law enforcement, criminal justice, mental health, and substance abuse services and other services by the city of Franklin's various departments and agencies. And whereas the Commonwealth of Virginia and its counties and cities, including the city of Franklin, have been required and will continue to be required to allocate substantial taxpayer dollars, resources, staff, energy, and time to address the damage the opioid epidemic has caused and continues to cause the citizens of the Commonwealth and city of Franklin. And whereas a settlement proposal has been negotiated that will cause Kroger to pay over $1 billion nationwide to resolve opioid-related claims against it, and whereas the city of Franklin has approved and adopted the Virginia Opiate Abatement Fund and Settlement Allocation Memorandum of Understanding, and affirms that this pending settlement with Kroger shall be considered a settlement that is subject to the Virginia MOU and shall be administered and allocated in the same manner as the opiate settlements entered into previously with opiate distributors McKesson, Cardinal Health, and Amber Source Virgin, opium manufacturers Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Teva Pharmaceuticals, and Allergen, and retail pharmacy chains CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. Whereas the city attorney and/or the city's outside counsel has reviewed the available information about the proposed settlement and it has recommended that the city of Franklin participate in the settlement in order to recover its share of the funds that the settlement would provide. And therefore, be it resolved that the city of Franklin, Virginia City Council on this 24th day of June 2024 approves of the city of Franklin's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger and its related corporate entities, and directs the city attorney and/or the city's outside counsel to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement, including the required release of claims against Kroger. Signed this 24th day of June 2024, Robert Bobby Cutchins, Mayor, City of Franklin, Virginia.
Do I have a motion?
All right, yes, so be it.
Second.
A motion, have a second. Any discussion needed on that?
What is Franklin's portion of the nationwide settlement, do you know?
I don't know the total amount. This particular one is for $44,000 from Kroger. And this is not the first one of these that I know the council has approved in the past. I think it's the first one since I've been in place, but we have been receiving funds for the last several years. And then once those funds are received and we appropriate them, then we actually expend those on various medications and stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more discussion needed? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 And so carried. Please note that Councilman McLemore's not in to vote. Next will be financial matters. Budget Amendment 2024-21, and I'll defer back to the General City Manager.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, these are pretty standard budget adjustments that are requested multiple times during the year by the schools. I don't see that there's any particular issue with any of these, so I would recommend that you all approve those. Some of them have to do with increased balances as adjustments to actual versus what was estimated. And it's really a year-end closeout to trying to make sure that they can maximize the amount of revenue that are available.
That was grant funds, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve
So moved.
Second.
2024-21? I have a motion, and I have a second. Any discussion needed?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 And aye. So carried. Next, we go into the whole new business portion, zoning amendment, 500 West 2nd Avenue, and I'll defer back to the interim city manager.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. All right, so this application, this is the ordinance to amend and reenact Appendix D zoning ordinance of the Franklin City Code by amending and reenacting.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah,
please?
come a little bit closer to the,
Yeah, to the mic.
Can you hear me better?
yeah.
All right, I'll start over. An ordinance to amend and reenact Appendix D zoning ordinance of Franklin City Code by amending and reenacting Article 5 General Residential District R2 Sections 5.2 permitted principal uses and 5.53A minimum lot area to add multifamily dwellings in existence as of 9/25/2023, the date of adoption of the comprehensive zoning ordinance amendment as a permitted use within the 5-acre minimum acreage requirement, provided that there is no increase in the number of units. So this is specific to 500 West 2nd Ave, as I'm sure y'all have seen that property before. This is about a quarter of an acre lot that this structure is on. You should have a picture in your packets. So just briefly, the current zoning for that property on 500 West 2nd Ave is general residential district R2. Within R2, there's a 5-acre minimum lot size for multifamily. That's a multifamily that's obviously not on a 5-acre lot, so it's a non-conforming lot at this time. Essentially, what we want to do, the specific property should have been addressed in September 2023 when a comprehensive change was made to the zoning ordinance. And this proposal really is to bring this property into conformance. For staff recommendation, we do recommend approval of this amendment to the zoning ordinance. And for Planning Commission recommendation at the regular meeting, Planning Commission held on May 23rd, 2024, the members voted 6-0, recommending approval of the amendment to the zoning ordinance. Part of the reason we as a staff recommend approval is that essentially as the property sits right now, they can't really do anything with it. So either they would have to tear it down and come into conformance with the new structure and new use on that property. Or we could pass this, or recommend approval for this, and they'd be able to fix that up. So this kind of gives them, you're good. This kind of gives them two options: to improve this property and use it as it is, or they could eventually tear it down and make single-family or two-family homes in that area.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. We've been dealing with this property now over 10 years, to my knowledge. It reverted back to single-family use back several years ago. And then we approved the rezoning back to multifamily use. We approved that with the promise of the owner that he was going to revitalize his property. Since that time, he has done nothing to the property. The taxes have been paid. So what exactly is our objective by doing what you want to do?
So if this is passed, this will bring this property into conformance. So right now, if he wants to repair this, he couldn't,
So
as is.
It'll be, you can use this property for multi-family use under the current zoning if we approve this.
So the amendment will change portions in the current zoning to allow this specifically. So, and I'll go through both of those.
Give me a timeline on what you believe is going on with this property, because it don't need to be torn down, that's for sure. It's a historical
Right.
building, and it needs to be put to use, but it's also an eyesore in the community, so we need to figure out exactly what you think's gonna happen if we change the zoning.
I mean, I can't specifically say what would happen because that would be up to the owner of the property. But in terms of why we recommend what we recommend, they have two options with the recommendation to change the zoning ordinance with this amendment. So they can either fix this property up, but they can't enlarge it or make more units out of it. I believe it's 4 units right now. So they could do that, or they could tear it down and then put a single-family home on that lot.
Or they could do nothing for another 10 years.
Right. But either way, essentially, it could be like that.
I've been on council now 7 years, and we've had multiple people come in about this property, complain about this property, and council has not been able to accomplish anything. So I understand where you're at. I guess the big question is the landlord, have they been to you and want to do something?
They've expressed interest. I haven't had an extended conversation with them.
So they haven't come in. This is just what y'all have picked up.
No, I've talked to the owner over the phone one time. And I mean, he spoke with investors, but I don't have anything in writing to confirm
So
anything
how is it
going
currently
forward.
zoned?
It's currently zoned R2, residential.
R2. Didn't all of R2 revert back to residential? Single-family residential?
No, you can still have multifamily, but you have to have a 5-acre minimum lot.
And this doesn't have that.
No, this is only a quarter,
So this will
about a
be
quarter
a
acre.
non-conforming zoning use.
It's currently a non-conforming zone use.
Yeah, it's currently, and it will continue to be.
No, it will not.
If it doesn't have 5 acres, it will.
So if you look at the first change that we proposed, and I'll go ahead and go over both of these changes. So the first change is under the permitted principal uses for R2. So that we would add multifamily dwellings in existence as of September 25th, 2023, which this home meets that criteria. So that would bring it into conformance. And then the second part, for the minimum lot size, we would add a section that has for multifamily dwellings in existence as of September 25th, 2023, the minimum 5-acre lot size shall not apply. However, structures may only be repaired, and this is key to this. However, structures may only be repaired or replaced within the existing footprint, and there should be no increase in the number of units. So both of those will bring this into conformance if it's passed. If it's not passed, it'll just stay in non-conformance, and eventually somebody will have to tear it down and find another use for the property.
which they can't do today.
Or they could at least sell it or do something. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. With that, I will now open the public hearing regarding the zoning amendment for 500 West Second Avenue. And anyone, if anyone would like to speak on this matter, please come forward. If anyone would like to speak on the rezoning amendment for 500 West Second Avenue, please come forward. And for the third and final call, would anyone like to speak on the amendment for the 500 West Second Avenue property? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. And we can have discussion or pleasure of council.
I think the proposal for changing it, amending it so that they can make the property useful would be necessary, basically, rather than have it sitting there and doing nothing.
Well, he made it clear that that can happen either way, but I am in agreement with changing it so that in case if they want to do something, they can.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Please sell it.
And if they don't, do we end up the same situation here we go on 300 Lee Street?
correct.
Wait.
However, with the it being a historical property, we are looking into trying to get some funding for that. It's just been a long, drawn-out process.
But the owner of this property has been totally uncooperative ever since the day we started.
Perhaps if we do invest in the historical funding, then that might actually kind of persuade them to do something to it, hopefully. It is a shame that it does look like that, and it has looked like that for some time.
Oh, yeah.
Many
And-
years.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, but
Yeah, we
at
need
least give them the option, the zoning option to do something.
A backstory I heard on this property, because I was very concerned with why it was sitting there like that so long. And I was told that they began work on it, but they did not get the proper permits to do the work. And when they didn't get the proper permits to do the work, the zoning people at the time, which would have had to go back into Mr. Goodwin's administration at some point, or Mr. Sherman's, they said, before we let you go around us, we will not give you no permits for this place. And they stonewalled the people from getting the proper permits for some reason. Don't know how accurate it is. I'm just saying that there's something going around where they want to fix it up because they could be renting those apartments out. Those 4 apartments could be rented. They own the facility. But they made it like the city was putting up all kinds of obstacles to keep them from moving forward. But again, I don't know how.
Of course, I don't know where your rumor come from, but my rumor says they couldn't get the financing to redo it.
Could be.
Well, the big question here is, do we want to approve so they can continue forward? You have another opportunity, and maybe the city can change an ordinance where vacant properties can be addressed after a period of time. We've talked about that a lot, but I think that would be the biggest way, a vacancy tax or whatever. But right now, is there any desired action of the council?
I move that we adopt it so they can do what they need to
So
do.
I have a motion to adopt the amendment, okay?
A second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. So carried. Next item, alley abandonment, lot 7 and lot 8, perpendicular to Morton Street. I'll defer back to you.
All right, this application of Ricky Sykes to vacate a 50 by 180 foot approximately proposed street platted between lots 7 and 8 in section 1 of Pretlow Farms Estates subdivision located on Morton Street in the city of Franklin, as shown on the survey entitled Plat Showing Section 1 Pretlow Farms Estates. The applicant Ricky Sykes has applied to vacate the platted unimproved street located adjacent to Lot 8 where his primary residence is located and proposes to utilize the area to expand his yard. Lot 8 currently contains half an acre. The unimproved street was platted to serve a future phase of Pretlow Farms Estates to be located behind the lots fronting Morton Street. The future phase was never platted and or constructed, and the property has since been sold to Global Concentrate for manufacturing. The purchase option for Global Concentrate did not include the unimproved street, eliminating the need for future access. As far as agency department comments, this application was forwarded to review to the departments of the city manager, Public Works, and Power and Light. Neither department objects to vacating the alley or street contingent upon the applicant's dedication of an easement to the city, which contains an existing drainage utility line that crosses the property. Staff also recommends approval contingent upon a dedication of the easement that I just mentioned. At the Planning Commission on May 23rd, 2024, the members voted 4-2 in favor of recommending approval to vacate street and further recommended giving half to each property owner on the budding properties at 401 and 321 Morton Street.
Questions?
Is this considered an alleyway or
It's a vacated street.
vacated street?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an alley.
Okay, is this similar to, the one that, I don't know if I don't think you were with us then, but, Bobby Tyler and Mr. Turner?
Commerce Park Road.
Yeah, thank you, Commerce Park Road.
This is
Are
a
you
little-
familiar with that?
Yeah, this is a little bit different because it's in a neighborhood, that's an industrial area. I think this is right across from the school. So this is a little bit different. It's residential too. Those are both business owners in the case that you're talking about.
That property, Mr. Sykes has been maintaining it, cutting the grass on it forever. Originally, it was supposed to be, if you notice, it's between those two houses. It was going to, at one time, become a street for access to that park. But since Global Concentrate purchased it, there's no intention to use it. And the city has to literally go onto Mr. Sykes's property in order to cut the grass, which they never have been doing. So he has been responsible for the upkeep of the lot there the whole time. And there's no intentions of anybody doing anything with it. So,
Have we determined the price or the value of that property?
We have not at this time, no. We haven't got that far in the process.
Okay, because
I go to the public hearing when y'all through, and then we can come back.
well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve what the planning commission is.
You have to go to public hearing before you can do anything.
Okay.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing regarding the vacating the alley between lots 7 and 8 going perpendicular to Morton Street. At this time, if anyone would like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, and Attorney. Ricky Sykes from 401 Morton. What I want to say is, I'm going to echo what Councilman McLemore said. I've been maintaining this property, cutting the grass. Now, the times that if I didn't cut it, the city cut it. If they did cut it, that means they have to use my driveway in order to gain access to this property. Someone did ask about the Mrs. Councilman Smith, you asked about the value of the property. Well, what I would say is this: there shouldn't be a value put on the property, and the reason why I would say so is this: if you give me the property, my tax is gonna go up, so I'm gonna have to pay the taxes on the property anyway. Now, as far as what am I gonna do with the property, like I say, it's just gonna enlarge my yard. And then again, I have to say this as well. What Mr. Barnes said. Now, from what I gather at the Planning Commission's meeting, and I did ask this question, as far as splitting the property, will I really object to that? I'm gonna say yes. Then again, I can say no. Meaning, and the reason why I say I object to it, to splitting, what I say, we don't know anyone's financial situation. So now, if you give someone else half of the property and then their property go up, their value go up on their property. So now you're putting more you could be putting more of a burden on someone else, and that may not be the case. But like I said, I'm not going to object if you split the property. But I'll say that I don't think a fee should be put on the property regardless, because like I say, if you split it, give Ms. Giles half, give me half, then that means, like I say, our property value is going to increase. So the city will definitely get their revenue from this. So with that being said, are there any questions? Because hopefully you guys understood what I was saying. Yeah.
I do. I have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
How wide is that property?
How wide is it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at this, your photo here. Now it says a half an acre. It's hard for me to believe
That's
that.
for the whole thing, it's 8.5. Is that?
I don't think it's a half an acre. No. It's not I don't think so. If you look at the photo of it, and then if you look, my house is right at a half an acre itself.
I have a question. Has Ms. Giles indicated that she has an interest in getting the other or half of the property?
No, she hasn't. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Director Barnes said that he contacted Ms. Giles. I can't.
Please.
So as an adjoining address for this application, she was sent the notice of the meeting for the Planning Commission and for this meeting, but we also sent a letter to her, just kind of letting her know what was going on. So those are the two communications we've had, and we haven't heard from her by mail or email or phone, so.
Thank you.
So again, so what I would say again, I mean, you could do half. I really, it's not going to be a burden on me if you do. But like I say, I've been maintaining the whole property for that certain amount of time. So, all right, thanks.
And for the second time, I will make a call if anyone would like to speak regarding the property on Morton Street. Please come forward. And for the third and final time, would anyone like to speak on regards to the property on Morton Street? Seeing nobody, I will now close the public hearing and put it out for any further discussion or desire.
I would just like to say, we're grateful for Mr. Seitz maintaining it. However, we're stewards of the property in the city of Franklin, and I don't see where we can just give property away without having some type of value.
Well, my problem, I believe everything Mr. Sykes says to be true. My problem is, I don't think we should set a precedence of where everybody that's got a house besides a closed street, we just give them the property next door. And that's kind of what this sets, is that precedent. And, I'm like you, I
don't think it sets a precedent, Mr. Smith.
I'm sure it does.
Because there was a property prior to the commercial properties on, that we discussed with Mr. Tyler and the other gentleman. There was another property that the gentleman wanted to add on to his lot that came up right before that, about a month or so before that. And we didn't charge him anything for that. We allowed him to acquire that property as a part of his lot.
That was an easement there, that was not a street.
Okay, my thing is, if we give it to Mr. Sykes, we will start immediately collecting taxes on it, revenue coming to the city, wherein if you don't, it sits there, we don't have anybody, we're not making anything off of the land.
I don't disagree with you.
So at least it would be maintained, and we would make money off of
I
it.
don't disagree with anything you're saying. I just don't want to set a precedence that everybody has a piece of property beside an abandoned street. We give them the property for nothing.
Now, the other thing is legally, we can't just give property away. Someone else comes and say, y'all gave the property away, and they want to file a lawsuit.
Well, how do we give away the easement? And I go back further. There was property on Clay Street that a man was cutting the grass. You remember that one, Bobby? It was on Clay Street, and he used to cut the grass, so we decided
No, I
we were
don't.
gonna let the man have it.
Alley in the back of it?
I think so.
Abandoned alley.
Yeah, Alan.
But an easement is a whole lot different than ownership.
Yes.
Number one, this lot's not a buildable piece of property by itself, am I correct? It's too narrow. That's why I asked how wide it was. If it's not a buildable lot, that would affect any thoughts of whether you're gonna give it away or sell it, in my opinion. But that's the only thing I can see.
But do we know? I think
We don't
Mr.
know.
Bond said what was your answer?
He don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we need a little bit more
Yeah.
factual information than, I don't know,
Right.
And what is the value of that? Because the citizens will come back and ask us all that, and we don't have any questions. We're gonna look like we're crazy.
I just say what we've been doing with it for the last 20 years.
That's not true.
If it's a platted street, it would be no wider than 50 feet?
And that would not be a buildable
That's correct.
lot. So you can't build on it. It's only good to the two people that are neighbors.
Yeah.
That's the only thing it's good to, unless the city wanted to keep it in case they ever needed an emergency entrance for that backside. I don't know, but as far as having, the value belongs to the two people there. So it's up to council what you desire.
Can I ask the city attorney a question? Don't we, when you divide a street like this, don't you have to give it to each person equally on both sides?
No.
You don't.
That's generally what no means.
We've done our due diligence by letting that person know, so I think we're covered there. I would think.
We haven't.
Yeah, we received it. But anyway,
So I'll make a motion that we adhere to the recommendation of the planning commission and vacate the property.
okay, I have a motion
I'll second.
and I have a second. Any further discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
No.
Aye.
And I, only because you cannot build on it or do anything with it.
Passes.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'll change my vote to abstain.
You can. Hey, Lloyd, can you do that?
Yeah,
Look at Lloyd's busy doing something else.
Take care.
Right, but the only question is whether or not the vote identified what value, if any, was going to be attributed to the transfer.
We were vacating it.
Vacated.
For no compensation.
That's what we did with the other.
I'm not aware of that. I'm just trying to clarify for the record what it is.
Yeah.
Did everybody understand it that way it'd be vacated, or we need to regroup? Thank you.
I'd say what?
Restate the motion.
We need some clarification.
Let's give
Yeah,
our
we need some
attorney a minute.
clarification here.
Let's give our attorney a minute.
Wasn't she supposed to weigh in before we took a vote?
It's all good, man.
The question was what the vote constituted and whether or not.
I said
it
restate the
was ever-
motion. Can we have the motion restated? Restate the motion.
I would agree.
The motion was to go with the recommendation of the planning commission and, you're gonna get what you want, just because you'll get what you want. I was just answering that question. What you tried to do. Okay.
Silence is nice sometimes.
Aaron, you have a copy of the ad. A copy of the ad was.
The public hearing notice.
Well, I'd like to move right along with the meeting. If you can search it there and come back to it. We're gonna go right next to, council's comments. And, we'll start off with anybody that has any comments or anything. Councilman Johnson?
Oh, I would just like to say that, we had Juneteenth, and that was a good session. Basically, I see the city working together. The more we work together, the more wholesome it'll be of growth and development.
I have nothing. I agree with Mr. Johnson.
You got one, Mr. Majette.
Yes, I'd like to, for us to think about a proclamation for El Terrell Majette, who quite possibly saved 2 children's lives. I think it's Friday night in the Brickyard, Norfolk Street, I'm sorry. Old folks know it as the Brickyard. Quite possibly, I mean, he did his civic duty. A lot of people wouldn't have done, a lot of people run the house. So I don't know how to get that passed, but I think some recognition, some honor should be given to Mr. Majette.
Yeah, I think we should have him come before council at some point. Maybe we can take care of that, but well done.
I agree.
All right, so that was actually going to be one of mine to highlight him and his wife, Rachel. So just want to shout both of them out and say thank you on behalf of the city of Franklin. I have another one in Ward 6, T2 Fresh Start Walking Meetup Group will be launching on July 1st, Franklin, Virginia, Mondays at 6 o'clock p.m. The flyer says, join us and let's keep moving together. They will meet at Meet and Park at Franklin Memorial Park on Clay Street and on the corner of Meadow Lane and Clay. Friends and family can join the walking groups by registering, and there's a QR code. And I believe if you look it up maybe on Facebook, social media, you can get the QR code and sign up to walk. But we just want to kind of stay healthy. And I just want to also say with this heat wave that we've been having, You may want to take your bottle of water while you're out there walking, but we commend this group for wanting to start a community walking group to keep people in shape and doing it together to stay safe.
Wards 5 next neighborhood watch meeting is 5:30 p.m. July 24th at the Dr. Martin Luther King Center.
I just want to thank the citizens of Franklin, Southampton for coming out, supporting the spectacular Juneteenth cultural celebration on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. We had strong attendance on Friday night, strong attendance on Saturday night, and not as strong attendance on Sunday, but it was still attended. I was able to attend also the city's Juneteenth event on this past Sunday, and thank Ms. Copeland for recognizing myself and Mr. Johnson for being there at the opening. And it was a privilege to come out and support my colleagues with their Juneteenth event.
I want to remind everyone about the 4th of July celebration. It's always been a really nice event. It's the Franklin Experience gives free hot dogs and watermelon to anybody and everybody that comes up. I think last year they gave away 2,000 hot dogs. So it's a nice event. Fireworks, I think, clearly is dark, but
Almost time, isn't it?
almost time. So come out if you can. I think you'll appreciate. We always put the big flag. I say we. I don't do it, but the big flag goes across Main Street. And it's really a sight to see. So come out and enjoy the 4th of July.
This will be the first time we were so close to the 4th of July. The 3rd.
Yes.
All right, next up, we have the city manager report.
Well, first of all, I apologize for my coughing. It wasn't that I overdid my trip to Australia, but the hat is in recognition of that, as well as the bad hairdo. As a result of a 14-day adventure. But somehow, during that time, I contracted pneumonia, so I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to be here tonight for this meeting, and I wanted to build upon the several comments about Independence Day and make sure that the council sees in their packet the recognition that has been given to you all for granting the employees that additional day, holiday, which they most appreciate, and I understand several of them have taken the opportunity to share with you their sincere gratitude for that. Secondly, I want to mention that both Chief Patterson and Samara Green Bailey did an outstanding job as acting city managers. I stayed in touch with them, and they stayed in touch with me until my grandson changed my Apple ID password on Thursday by trying to show me how to be tech savvy. And so I didn't have access to emails after Thursday, but I understand that things went beautifully in the city, which just proves that you have outstanding staff who know what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And so I appreciate the fact that they were willing to step up and do that, and to undertake a couple of significant events that were happening in the city during that time. And I promise that the next meeting, which will be July the 8th, I will have gotten rid of this terrible cough, and I'll have a better hairdo. I'm not sure that I'll have a better hat. This is actually a hat that was made by the Aborigines in Australia. And we clocked, I don't know how many hours in flight, but 9 different airline changes during the time that we were there. So I don't intend to fly anywhere anytime soon.
Jet lag.
Don't blame you at all. Is there any questions for gentlemen, city manager? Hope you feel better real soon.
Indeed.
Are there any council staff or staff reports on boards and commissions?
Yes, I have one. The Hampton City became a part of the Western Tidewater Regional Jail Authority. We have to make it official through the General Assembly, but we have an agreement. And with the agreement, it'll be coming out to each locality. But we have been receiving funds from them because we have their inmates. And with that, the authority will not have to borrow extra money, basically, because we're receiving money from Hampton. And with that, we're going to make some repairs and so forth and move forward. So in the near future, we'll be getting, hopefully the next meeting, we'll be getting the materials so we can vote on Hampton coming in as a part of the authority. Each locality will be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll defer back to our city manager and attorney.
So I just want to clarify that the motion that you all made was, who made the motion?
That's why I asked him to repeat it. Councilman McLemore made the motion.
Okay. And what was the motion?
To adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the zoning community development.
Okay. As it stated on page whatever. Okay. So that is recommending approval to vacate street and further recommended giving half to each property owner on the abutting properties at 401 and 321 Morton Street.
And it was done on the basis of the size of the lot. I want to make sure that's in there as well, that nobody missed it.
Also,
For the width.
the other property owner had expressed no interest in having it, so we don't need to give it to both of them, but we are vacating it, according to that.
Has the city contacted this lady?
Yes,
He said,
Okay.
2 times.
So then there's an amendment to the recommendation by the Planning Commission. Because the Planning Commission says give half to each property
Well,
owner.
with the motion, let the record reflect the motion is amended to exclude splitting the property, so that one person will be responsible for taking care of all the property, and the other person will not have a tax increase.
Sounds like we put the horse before the cart, didn't we?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that we're clear on what the motion is
I'm not clear.
and what the disposition of the property will be, because the Constitution requires a locality to hold a public hearing and then take a vote when it is divesting itself of property.
Didn't we just have the public hearing?
Yeah, we had the public hearing. That's
And
done.
didn't we just take a vote?
but the discrepancy now is that if we're supporting what they said, then they said to split it.
So to amend, okay, but we didn't have the information from the, zoning that when the planning commission, they hadn't been tried to reach the owner of the other property 2 times. So now that we know that they've reached out and they haven't expressed an interest in
So then
having
the
that.
motion needs to be stricken.
What I would like to do, I'd like for you to review it. If there is a problem, you come back to council.
What's the problem?
So I'm not necessarily, the problem that I was identifying is I don't know what you all were voting. I don't think the minutes can reflect what you all voted for, because it didn't seem like you all were voting on the same motion.
Right.
We
And
were
the other
voting-
thing,
we were voting on the
Yeah.
motion, and y'all two said nay. So the
Yeah.
people that
Abstained.
abstained, I'm sorry,
Abstained.
so the people that voted, I really believe should really,
I feel like we're okay on what we voted.
yeah.
I feel like we
Just
voted.
amend, just change the.
Councilman Michael, hold on a second. His motion was to vacate the property
Right.
for Mr. Sykes, because we had already done, according to our staff, done our due diligence on contacting the other property. Then I asked a question about the width. Could it build a home on it or anything like that? The answer was no.
Right, 50 feet.
So, when that was said, that's when, you know, we were all on the same page, I thought.
Okay.
I don't think so. I'd like to revote this motion.
No,
it
come on, boy,
carried.
we don't vote it. They don't come, I'd like to revote.
But my question is,
There's no revote, we've already
what,
voted.
if the other person, the other owner comes back later and says, we don't have anything in writing that the owner said she didn't want the property.
She was notified twice.
She would,
So you
thank
all
you.
properly, publicly noticed this hearing. So, I mean, you all followed all the steps. It's just, the confusion was whether the motion was adopting exactly what the planning commission recommended or disposing of the property differently.
That was the confusion.
Yes.
Got it.
there is
No,
no
that's
confusion.
understandable.
Yeah, we didn't.
So
we didn't-
because you did, because
Yeah,
Because
I
it
that is
said split
understood.
it in the
Exactly.
planning commission's
And
name.
see, you did not. end
Okay,
up-
and I just
yeah.
said I adopt the motion as presented.
And as
So I
presented,
amend the motion to reflect,
can we strike it? Can you
You
strike
can
it?
make a motion to, yes.
Can I have a motion to, make a motion to withdraw?
make a motion to withdraw and restate to, I make a motion that we adopt,
No, just do one. We gotta do one and come back.
go ahead, you do it.
All
I'm
right.
confused.
Councilman McElroy's made a motion to retract his motion that we voted on a while ago. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. We've had plenty of discussion, but do we need more? Okay, thank you. So we will retract this. I'll take a vote.
abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Now, this is to retract. Okay, and I. Okay, so that motion
Right. It's
That-
strict.
had been retracted. Now we're open. You can state your motion as
I make a
she wants to
motion
done.
that we adopt the recommendations of the Community Development and the Planning Commission, with the exception of including the neighbor who has been properly attempted to reach out to and did not respond. So
That's-
we vacated on behalf of Mr. Sykes as requested.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do we need more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
And I. So carried. Thank y'all. Appreciate you keeping us straight.
Got history.
Okay. And at this time, I'd like to say thank everybody for coming out. And we're going to be going into closed session, so I'll leave that motion there.
I move that the City Council of the City of Franklin, Virginia adjourn into closed meeting pursuant to the authority granted by those sections of the Code of Virginia, reference the agenda for the permitted purposes provided, and discuss those subjects described and set forth on the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion needed? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 And I. So carried. Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.